This is Xander Breach, and this is Before the Journey, My Early Childhood, Part 5. Before I continue, I must ask if you could please watch parts 1 through 4, because if you start here, you're going to be completely lost. It is very important you watch the first 4 parts because each part connects to the previous episode. Also, now that we got that done, here's a quick recap of what happened in part 4. In part 4, I basically finished off 93 and we went into talking about 94. I introduced my cousin Will, who I called Billy back then, and some other family members. I also mentioned the movies we saw that year, and I mentioned basically a little bit of what happened towards the end of staying on the base and where we had to leave because of the fact that my mother had the decision to divorce my adoptive dad after he hit her. And now that we got that done, let's talk about the next place my mother, me, my brother, and my aunt moved to as a start of beginning our journey into moving from place to place before moving into the house called Timberwood Drive, which I will talk about later. Alright. The year now is late 1994, as you already know. And my mother has taken it upon herself to move into a new house with me, my brother, and my aunt, and my cousin Will, who I called Billy, my cousin Billy's sister, and my cousin who was like an aunt to me, all in one house. This was off on Wheeling Drive. So it's late 94, and it's probably close to maybe Christmas time, I think. I'm not too sure. Maybe earlier than that. And during this time, we're now getting used to living under the same roof now. We're one big happy family getting used to living under the same roof. So I remember as we settled in and we got used to the fact we're all going to be spending time together a lot more, I remember one of the things, maybe one of the movies that was coming out during that time was the first Dumb and Dumber movie. And there was talks about it. It came out in theaters. It was probably Jim Carrey's second movie he's been in 94 compared to The Mask being out in the summertime. And he's co-starring with, actor Jeff Daniels. So, I remember everyone was talking about it. My mom wanted to go see it. A couple of family members wanted to go see it, but knowing my mom, my brother and I didn't see it. I guess there was some inappropriate scenes in there at the time my mom didn't want my brother and I watching. So we stayed home while everyone went to go see Dumb and Dumber. I remember a couple things that happened in that house maybe not in an orderly time, but after 94 ended, 95 turned out to be awesome. You see, my mom was already in love with my stepdad, who I met beforehand. I actually met him before we moved to Wheeling Drive. I met him on a time he was working on his truck, I guess. He was remodeling his truck. He had some friends help him out. And seemed like a really good guy. I thought he was mine and mom's race, but it turns out he was a Cuban who grew up in Colombia. So turned out to be a nice visit, and at least he got to know my mom had kids, so surprise. But he had a son himself, so it wasn't a big deal. Who I'll later meet later down the line. So in 95, let's get back on track here. It was probably that whole half year, most of the things we did was, let's see. We spent a lot of time playing Super Nintendo games. Like, we were on Super Nintendo like crazy. Even in 94, we were playing Super Nintendo games. The lineup was simple. You had Donkey Kong Country. You had the Lion King video game. You had Rocko's Modern Life, the video game. You had the little painter game where you can just draw for fun. Yeah, we spent a lot of time on that console, playing hours and hours of it. And it was fun, it just gave us something to do. We played outside, and, it was something that kept us occupied. I remember the TV shows we watched during that time. Even in late 94, when we first moved in, we got into a routine. We had the TGIF lineup on ABC at the time, which was Family Matters, Step by Step being first, Boy Meets World, and I believe Sabrina the Teenage Witch. But I don't know if that show came out during that time. But I do believe it was part of the TGIF lineup in the 90s. TGIF, if you're a younger person or you don't know what it means Thank God It's Friday. And ABC had this lineup going every Friday night. And we were all ready, and we had a routine that was going to be a night we enjoyed some really good sitcoms. Then you had Saturday night. Nickelodeon's lineup called SNICK, called Saturday Nickelodeon. You had The Secret World of Alex Mack. You had all that. Later, a little bit later down the line, you had Kenan and Kel. And, of course, you had a show we watched a lot of times, Are You Afraid of the Dark? Now, let me tell you something about Are You Afraid of the Dark? We loved that show. We watched it like I don't know how many times. And I guess you can say the whole concept of it being scary but fun at the same time was highly interesting. I'll never forget one of the episodes, though, that would later be my favorite, but scared the living bejesus out of me as a child. The episode I'm talking about is The Tale of the Ghastly Grinner. And when I watched that episode, it's basically about a young boy who gets this comic book, and he takes the comic book, does something stupid, throws it in a microwave, and brings the villainous character in the comic book to life. And when the villainous character comes out, he comes out into the real world and he's causing a load of trouble. In other words, he makes people laugh ridiculously while blue drool comes out of their mouth. And he's dressed up like a court jester. Or if you're into a game of cards, a joker. And all he does is he picks someone up by the shirt collar, laughs in their face, and they're laughing maniacally, and they got blue drool going across their face. And I remember looking at that character, and I'm like, this is spooky. I mean, it's a good episode. Pretty cool costume design, and pretty cool storyline. Now I think about it, but as a child who's 8 going on 9 watching something like that, it spooked me. Probably the only episode on Are You Afraid of the Dark that really spooked me. But other than that, there was some episodes I thought were interesting and very awesome with a good lesson and a good storyline. And it just goes to show, I paid attention more to the good characters, because the good characters threw in a lesson in the story. As well, the bad characters kind of made it scary, but it was the good characters that brought in the lesson and the soothing part of the story. Yep, another episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark that really, really got to my head was The Tale of the Lonely Ghost, but it was also heartwarming at the same time. I think the scene where you see the little girl who's a ghost come out through the mirror, that really did something to my head. I was like, what? Wow. But as you get into the episode, you find out it's a very friendly ghost and she just needed help. She needed help getting her mom back because she missed her mom. So, I can't go any further. If you haven't seen any episodes I mentioned, you have to watch it. If you're like a huge 90s fan, into 90s show, Are You Afraid of the Dark is the show to watch. So back to the story. So, what I do recall, in the year between 94 and 95, I remember one time we were going somewhere. I don't exactly recall, but my brother, me, we all get out of the car when we get back. And what happened is I knew my brother meant well, but as I'm getting out of the car, my brother closes the door and slams my hand on the door. I'm in pain. I'm crying. I mean, getting your hand slammed by a door, a car door not to mention, is very, very painful. So, I'm in the car door trying to figure out how to get out because my hand is stuck on the hinge. Like the hinge of the door. And what happened is my mom started wondering where I was at. And I'm like banging on the window. I'm like, help me, help me, help me. I'm like freaking out. And my mom comes and she sees what's going on. She opens up the door and I'm like so relieved to have that door opened, because at least I knew I still had my fingers. They didn't get chopped off. And you see, my brother didn't get into a lot of trouble because he didn't know what he was doing. But it would be years later, I would have to, you know, be the one in trouble because of something that happened to him similar, but not quite something I did. And we'll get to that in the original vlog show when I make my deleted moments, I guess. But in a sense, having your hand slammed to a car door or any body part for that matter, you are going to cry. It hurts like the dickens. You will find yourself in a situation where you're crying. So I remember that day quite well, and never again did my hand get slammed in a car door. And I'm still lucky to have all my fingers, so I guess I was counting my blessings that night. So, back to the story. So I do recall one time my mom made this delicious tuna and macaroni deal for dinner. And I guess it was either my mom or my mother's cousin who was like an aunt. And when she did, I loved it. But I accidentally took the food and slid the bowl off the counter, and my mom got mad. She's like, "Why did you do that for?" I'm like, I'm sorry. Can I have some more?" She's like, "No." She's like, how can I need a moment to remember what was said. But she's like, "No. Why the fuck would you do something like that?" And I'm like, "Mom, please, I didn't mean to do it. Go to your room right now." And she let me have it a little. But I guess the yelling and the cussing, it kind of, made me think like, wow, maybe I should have been a little more careful. But it's not like she starved me. She just didn't like the fact I wasted food, and she was going to be like that later down the line. And with my mom, once you get the food, you don't like it even if you try it, you still had to eat the food. Everything off the plate. If it's not done, you don't eat anything else. That's how my adoptive dad was, if you remember in part 3, but that's how my mother was too. It's everything off the plate or you get nothing. Even if you don't like it, you still had to eat it. So sometimes I found myself fear factoring food. Do you know what that means? Fear factor. You eat without thinking about it. And I had to do that growing up. There was times I really had to do that. If I didn't like a food, I had to fear factor it. If I didn't eat it, I got nothing else. It was plain and simple. And I didn't like that. I really didn't. But my mom, she had the best intentions. But that's one of the things I didn't like that she did. And I love her to this day. I really do. Because this is her story. But that's one of the things about her I didn't quite enjoy, but it taught me not to waste food. So I give her credit for that too. So, now that we got that done, let's talk a little bit about one of the things my cousin Billy's sister used to do. One night, my mom, my cousin who's like an aunt to me, and Billy would all go to somewhere fun, and my aunt would join them. My cousin Billy's sister was going to watch us, my brother and I. May I remind you, as a child, she was trying to teach us something, but we really didn't get what she was teaching us. One night, she wanted to teach us a lesson. And as a child, we didn't know what to expect. So one night, she decided to scare my brother and we go running around the house, and she was being scary, but what she taught us was there's nothing to be scared of. There's nothing, the dark is not that scary as you think. And I think when you're a child, you don't comprehend things. But as a child, I used to be frightened. I used to be like, oh, I was like, stop it. Is this a joke? And she really scared us, but she did it in a way that taught us something. And we never got the hint. And I didn't find out until I became an adult. I do recall my cousin, having a boyfriend, the one who's like an aunt to me. And I do recall one day we all go to this guy's house. Real nice guy. He basically watched over my brother and and we helped him out a couple times, and we learned about him. But the one thing I never thought I would ever see as a child that would disgust me is the fact he had a knack for peeling his skin from his neck and throwing it in a bowl. Now that I think about it, he may have had a condition that may have not been all that pretty, but he would do that, and you'd see the bowl filled with real dead skin, and I was like, wow. One time he decided to play a prank on my mother and my cousin, who's like an aunt to me. All of us kids were in on it. And he had me be the one to help with the prank. So he took 2 slices of white bread, took a dead rat, and put it between the 2 slices of white bread. Like, we're talking about a big rat this size. Like, huge. And he says, go run around and show your mother and show my cousin, who's like an aunt to me, the dead rat. So, what do you think I was going to do? I was going to do it. I thought this was going to be fun. Lo and behold, maybe I should have rethought that. My mom was not going to like this. And that's not what I was thinking. I just thought this was a fun little joke. So I take the rat sandwich and I literally start running all over the place and showing it to my mom and my cousin, who's like an aunt to me, and they are disgusted. They're like, get that away from me. Why are you doing this? And I'm like, Mom, it's just a joke. My cousin Billy's laughing his head off. My cousin Billy's sister's laughing her head off. And my brother, I don't know what he was doing, but anyone who was younger, including my cousins, who's like an aunt to me, boyfriend at the time, was also laughing because we were just having a fun little prank, but the prank wasn't that funny to the 2 main people we were joking around with. After all is said and done, I went back to him, brought back the rat sandwich. Got it away from them, and I remember when I showed it to him, you guys want a rat sandwich? And I had like this little kid-like smile on my face, but I had two disgusted parents who were ready to let my cousins, who was like an aunt to me, boyfriend. He's my cousin who's like an aunt to me's boyfriend. Excuse me, I keep pluralizing me. And he he had gotten into a little bit of trouble for being the mastermind, and I got in trouble for following his mastermind. But when you're a kid, you do stupid stuff. And I don't think that comprehended with my mom. So we get in the car, and my mom let me have it. She was like, "Why the fuck would you do something like that?" And I'm like, "Mom, it was just a joke." "I don't fucking care. Why would you do something like that?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry. Don't you ever fucking do something like that again. Do you hear me? That was disgusting." And I'm like, "Okay, fine. You got it." Looking at my mom's face and seeing it, I was like, next time I'll be careful on how I joke with you. I never did that again. That was a one-time thing, thank God. But I do recall that time, and I don't think my cousin, the boyfriend of my cousin who's like an aunt to me, did it either. It was a one-time thing, and we learned quickly not to do that. So I want to go ahead and stop here and let you know I'll talk to you guys later, but I think you've had enough info for today. I am going to come back for part 6, but y'all take care and God bless you. Bye.